I have a lot of hobbies, and I sometimes struggle with the feeling that maybe I use my hobbies as a form of escapism, as a way to distract myself or as a place to hide from things in my life that actually need my attention. Yet, over time, I've noticed that when I pay close attention to those negative feelings that start to bubble up around the dark side of escapism, I find that I don't actually believe in them. I do believe that I use hobbies as an escape from stress in my life, but I don't believe that escapism has to be such a negative concept. Instead, I think that escapism can teach us quite a bit about meaning, and we can use the concept of escapism as a way to feel empowered to create meaning in our own lives. There are a few concepts here that I want to break down that together ultimately make up my theory that escapism can actually be a good thing. First, we need to examine the concept of escapism itself. Escapism is commonly defined as mental diversion from unpleasant aspects of daily life, typically through activities involving imagination or entertainment. For me, and for perhaps you too, these unpleasant aspects of daily life can include things like work stress, pain from the past that I've never properly worked through, or depression's close cousin, anxiety about the future. Common thread that connects any of these unpleasantries is the fact that they mostly exist in our heads. Our minds blow them out of proportion, imagine them to be worse than they actually are, or perhaps even imagine things that don't actually exist. It's interesting then that the very definition of escapism says that our imagination is often the very same thing we use to escape our problems as well. This feels like a paradox of sorts. How can it be that our imagination is doing a bad thing in escaping from our problems, when really, what's worse is that our imagination is creating those exact same problems in the first place? If escapism, then, is simply using our minds to our benefit rather than to our peril, then I don't think we need to paint such a dark picture around it. Now, let's talk about some of the common things we do to escape. There are things, of course, that are no better than whatever stress we're trying to distance ourselves from. At the worst end of the spectrum, you've got things like drugs and alcohol, and then somewhere a bit further along the spectrum, toward neutral, you've got things like doom scrolling social media and the news. But keep going along that spectrum, past bad, past neutral, and you'll eventually get to good. Things that actually benefit us, whether that be emotionally, intellectually, or physically. Escaping into a good piece of fiction can expand our empathy, sharpen our focus, let us see the world through someone else's eyes, or get new perspective on our own. Escaping into physical activity is not just good for our bodies, but also for our mental health, lowering stress, boosting energy, and giving us a break from the constant chatter in our heads. And of course, escaping into nature, where everything slows down, where our problems suddenly feel smaller against the backdrop of mountains or trees or the ocean. This can be the best reset of all. It puts things into perspective in a way that almost nothing else can. How are any of these things bad? When viewed this way, escapism actually seems like something essential, something we should regularly do in order to balance out all the unpleasant stuff that we inevitably have to deal with in life. But alas, perhaps this doesn't quite capture the feeling of when we start questioning spending time on the things that we normally enjoy. The voice that says, you shouldn't go on a bike ride, you should be working on your resume in case you lose your job, or you shouldn't watch a movie tonight, you should be cleaning the house, catching up on emails, or doing something productive. How do we find meaning in the things we escape to when we feel like we're simply running from problems? I think the key here is leaning into that creeping feeling of something having no inherent meaning, like a TV show or a bike ride or a silly hobby, and realizing that despite having no inherent meaning, damn, can they still feel so good. And the truth in that exposes the reality that the things that stress us out don't have any inherent meaning either. The deadlines, the expectations, the roles we feel trapped in, maybe those things only carry the weight that we assign them to. A healthy dose of escapism reminds us that we are the ones who assign meaning to everything. We are the ones who decide which burdens we'll carry and which ones we'll set down. We are free to choose where meaning lives in our lives. We can give ourselves permission to rest, to play, to enjoy without explanation. And just so, we can decide to turn the dial of other stresses down from a 10 to something more manageable. So no, I don't think escapism is a bad thing. It's a reminder that we don't have to justify joy, and we don't have to defend the things that bring us peace or energy. Equally so, we don't have to carry every burden that lands on our shoulders. We don't have to make big deals out of things that really aren't that important. A healthy bit of escapism shows us that life is lighter than we think, that it's all made up. And for that reason, it's also ours to shape. What do you think? Is escapism simply mental diversion from unpleasant aspects of daily life, typically through activities involving imagination or entertainment? Or is that same imagination, the one that we often blame for our distractions, actually the same thing that holds the power to set us free?